Blast me to Bermuda! It's time for episode 11 of the Mad Merlin's Warhammer 40,000 Imperium journey, part 1, Lore and Building! Hello and welcome back to the Mad Merlin's Warhammer 40,000 Imperium journey. How's everybody and what are you up to today? It's a rather wet day here in the UK, so I hope you've got something nice, bright and cheerful planned. For me, I'm going to go through issue 11 of the Warhammer 40,000 Imperium part works. So, we get in this issue one miniature and we get a medium dry brush. We learn about the Librarian in Phobos armor, we learn all about the Librarius, and we have a Psychic Powers playthrough. So, first let's have a quick look at our model. You can see he's a nice little model, not very many components, but he's got a rather nice unique character. As I mentioned in my unboxing, I'm not the biggest fan of Phobos armor, but I am a big fan of Librarians. And this guy looks like he'll be an absolute joy to paint. Flip over, we've got only the one head option, which is a rebreather mask. Got his raised arm, channeling his psychic might, and his outstretched power sword. Other details include a little book that goes on his back, and he's standing on the ever-important tactical rock. When I get through to the build guide, I will explain about the best way of leaving this guy in sub-assemblies. But first, let's take a look at the lore. So I'll set the Librarian off to the side with his 40mm round base, and we'll get into the issue. There we go. So, we have a new datasheet for our battle record. We have the HQ number 3, the Librarian of Phobos armor. We have lore for the Space Marines of the Librarius. We have lore for the Necrons of Eldritch Artifice. We learn to build our Librarian, how to add some paint to him, and our Psychic Assault playthrough. As usual with characters, I won't be going through any detail on the paint, but I will go through the issue quickly at the end of the video. So here we go, the Librarian in Phobos armor, stealthy psychic warrior. The Librarians are the Space Marines psychic warriors. They use their potent warp talents to empower their brothers and destroy their opponents. Librarians who serve in the Vanguard formations wear Phobos armor and specialize in the psychic disciplines of stealth and misdirection. So, all members of the Vanguard have camo cloaks. Librarians bear keys for the chambers and the archives that they serve. Each Librarian, whether it's Phobos or power armor, has a psychic hood built in to help direct the power of his psychic channeling. Each Librarian has a force sword, or some will wield rods or axes depending on your chapter. We have the various different symbols of the Librarius ranks, and we also have a campaign badge. We have a little bit of a quote from a Ultramarines epistolary. So, on my battle record, we have Librarian Ivan Agonor. I know it's Evan, but I'm going to call him Ivan, it sounds better. He is the Paladin of Hera, and he is a Lexicanum. So they are the lowest ranking of the Librarian. So he's a beginner as such. They go through the ranks of Lexicanum, Codicia, and Epistolary. His sword is the Blade of Fury. And we have a record here of the psychic powers that he can manifest. We only get Smite at the start, but in later issues we will be getting full rules for the rest of the Obscurus discipline. So, on to our first new bit of background, the Space Marine Librarius. Each Space Marine chapter has its own Librarius, a group of warrior mystics and scholars. Space Marine Librarians have spent decades mastering their psychic talent and lent the chapter their wisdom and fearsome power in battle. So here we have a Librarian manifesting Eldritch powers, most likely Smite. So the ranks of the Librarius, we have the Chief Librarian, who is the head of the order. The Apostolaries rank only second to the Chief Librarian. Codicias are the Lexicanons who have been promoted and excel in their duties. We have the Lexicanum, who are the training. They've passed the rites from being scouts and into a acolyte and battle brother, and they are ready to take to the field in their first role as leader. Then we have finally the Acolytes, so potential Librarians are drawn from the Space Marine recruits who possess strength of will and great psychic power. They must go through decades of brutal training to harden their will before they can become a full Librarian. A little bit of detail about all the different Space Marine psychic disciplines that Space Marines can master. There's different ones depending on your chapter, a lot of it will be. And we have a little bit here, little story blurb of Witch Fire and Warp Flame. On to our next bit of lore, which is new for the Necrons, the Eldritch Artifice. So this is all about the Necron war gears. So from its command barge, a Necron overlord watches his forces, superior firepower overwhelming the enemy. The armories of the Necron race are filled with technology that predates the very birth of the human race. They are lethal, as they are ancient. Got a Mechanicus report about findings of Necron war gear and weapons and how they try to understand them. And here we have a quick look at some of the melee weapons for the Necrons. So you got a War Scythe, Staff of Light, Rod of the Covenant, the Dispersion Shield, which we'll be getting on the Lich Guard later on. Lich Guard also wield the Hyperphase Sword. They can optionally wield a War Scythe. And then we have the Void Blade, which are used by the Treyarch Praetorians, I believe. One of the optional war gears they can take. So here we go into a bit more detail about each of the different types here. So Hyperphase Weapons work by vibrating across dimensions, allowing the edge of the blade to slip through armor and flesh with ease, severing vital organs and muscles beneath. Void weapons have blades that flicker in and out of existence. When the blade strikes a foe, it causes the victim's molecular structure to break apart, disintegrating flesh and armor. War Scythe. Carried by nobles and their Lich Guard protectors, the energized blades of these weapons allow them to pass through armor with minimal effort. Their blades are almost indestructible. And a Staff of Light. This powered staff is also capable of firing short-range blasts of energy. It is a symbol of rank and authority, and they are only worn by Necron royals and high-ranking cryptex. So now we're moving on to our build guide. I'll just get my equipment ready and I'll be back shortly. Okay, before we get into it, we have a quick reminder about clipper safety, being aware of fragile components and how each of the components break down. It'll give you a quick reminder about removing sprue nubs and mold lines, and then we can get into the actual nitty-gritty of building. So this is only a very small model in component count, so we'll get straight to it. While the instructions show you how to build the model straight up, I do suggest using sub-assemblies to your advantage. For this, I've decided that I will create the base as a single sub-assembly. So for that, we'll cut off the stone here, part 4. I'm using my own clippers and toolkit as I'm I much prefer working with these as it's what I've been using. Remember, when using knives, to always cut away from yourself and have an adult handy. But we'll just gently use a knife to remove any mold lines and sprue tabs, like so. And if we look at the completed diagram here, we see that the model needs to be placed roughly in the center of the base. So we'll run a bit of plastic glue on the base and sit the rock and leave that off to the side to dry. The next sub-assembly I'm going to do is the sword arm and the left shoulder pad. Doing these as a single assembly will allow you to reach details that the arm and sword might obscure, and will allow you to paint the sword in an easier and more natural way. What I will be doing is drilling into the inside of the shoulder slightly with a pin vise and attaching a bit of paper clip so that I can hold the wire in a comfortable direction. So let's make sure we get all the mold lines. And on the shoulder pad we got the underside here to trim down, and then the back of the cape. Now, luckily, the way this has been designed, it will fit in only in one way. We got the oval notch there, and the oval nub there. So all we need to do is put a little bit of plastic glue on the nub, and we can push it into place. Ooh. There we go. Set that off to the side to dry. Now we can focus on building the rest of the Librarian as the instructions say. So first we'll need parts 1 and 2, so his back body and his right leg. Just make sure we haven't got any delicate connectors, which on these components we don't seem to. I think the only one we've got to watch out for is the purity seal on the book. And you want to make sure you do not remove the little notch on the bottom of his foot, because that will help him locate against the stone on the base. And where we got to go? We got to go here. So I think we've cleaned up all the mold. Oh, no, a little bit of an old line left there on the holster. There we are. So we can easily glue in the right foot. Just put a bit of glue on that connector post there and line up like so. Hold that in place to help it melt. There, and that'll be ready to dry. While we're letting that dry, we'll cut out the front torso, which is part 3. There. Quite a few mold lines on this guy. But as with all models, take your time going around and checking you got all of them. So with that cleared up, we can go ahead and attach our components. So if we look on the underside, we've got 2 little divots there, which attach there. Then we got the arm here that attaches, and that arm will attach in there. So what we'll do is put a small dot of glue there and there and there. And on this side, we'll put a small bit of glue there and against the back of the head joint. And line them up, push them together. And if we bring in our base, we can see that that little notch will go into that hole there. And we can test the fit of where he'll go. That's going to be perfect. That'll be easy to attach. Just have to make sure we leave enough space on the base when you put down any basic material. So. Next, we will clip out and leave the backpack as one separate component. And again, we'll attach a piece of wire to that later on for ease of painting. Simply drilling up underneath here where you won't see any detail and damage anything later on. That's a rather easy cleanup. Like I said, we'll leave that as a separate component. And the final components, the book, the arm and the head, we can all glue on. So we'll cut those out, being careful of this little bookmark. That's the frame finished with. Quite a few thick mould lines against the hood. That's no trouble to remove. There we got. So the book, there is a little notch on the back of his belt. Just apply a small dab of glue and place the book over it, like so. His head will sit in that neck, in the neck joint there, and there's a little guiding groove. So just put a small bit of glue there and slide the head in place. And finally, we line up that notch there with the gap there. So, small dab of glue, and we put the arm in place. And if we bring in the arm for the sword, we can see how that fits, just like that. I'll stand him on his base temporarily. And like I said, we'll quickly cover the paint guide, as I'll be painting this guy up off camera to my usual character standard. So, to paint our Librarian, we first want to give him 3 good coats of Abaddon Black, as he has quite a dark colour scheme to base off. Then we'll paint the blue armour with Macragge Blue. You may need a couple to 3 layers to get a good solid coat. We'll paint all the cloth areas of the outer cloth areas, leaving the inner cloth black, as you can see here. Paint the outer cloth with Mechanica Standard Grey. Next we'll paint the rock, the psychic cables, as well as the flesh with Corax White. Pick out the various gold details with Retributor Armour. As you'll know, I'll be doing 3rd Company, so I'll be doing red along the shoulder pad there. But we've got details like the sword hilt, back to his gloves, various skulls, corners of the book, and his little pendant as well, and the keys. And the final colour is Lead Belcher, which will be on all the silver details, so the vents on the backpack, belt buckles and any other clasps, and the full blade of the sword. So once this guy's painted up, we'll be able to get on with our playthrough. So all that's left is to thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe if you want to see more mad content. If you'd like to help support the channel, there is an affiliate link for Curton Games and a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description down below. There's also my social medias, which will have links to my various wish lists. So, until next time, Keep it mad. This is Merlin saying goodbye.